And on behalf of the church, we'd like to welcome you to our space. We are glad that you are able to come here and discuss this important topic. I just kind of want to remind everybody that this is an important topic, and I know there are emotions that are running high, so be nice. Right? It's a city thing, so I'm not going to do what I would normally do every time I talk to a group of people. But again, welcome. I hope you guys have a great time and have some good discussion, and so the council can make a good decision. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. So I'm Charlie Miner, the mayor of Long Lake. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you coming tonight. We'll try to get started here on time so we can keep things moving along. I want to start out by thanking Calvin Presbyterian Church for hosting our event. Special thanks to Pastor John Day here, just spoke to us, as well as Parish Secretary Chelsea Ray is here as well, part of our lovely fire family as well. So appreciate hosting. This is a great, perfect-sized room for the crowd we have tonight. Thank you for all of you that came this evening. The cold night, a little slippery outside, wind's blowing, so very much appreciate that you're here tonight. This is a very important topic. Long Lake City Council has been talking about doing this for a good year or two now. This is a really important decision for our city. Most of the decisions that we make as a city council, we make in the confined walls of City Hall, based on the knowledge we have and based on the power that's sort of given to us by those that elected us in Long Lake. But this is really a big decision for our 107-year-old fire department as far as the future of the fire department. So this is an unusual situation where we want to ensure that we're getting as much, both getting information from the community and then receiving information from the community to help guide us in our decision-making process. And we'll talk about what some of those decisions are here soon. I'll introduce the city council here in a moment. We also have some other folks in the room that just want to acknowledge that we have the current and future mayor of Minnetonka Beach with us tonight. We have representatives from Orono. We have Mayor Walsh, Councilmember Matt Johnson with us. Forgive me if I missed anybody else from that group. We have Councilmember Dino. I always have a hard time, Dino, but I'm just going to call him Dino from Medina. Thank you for coming, Dino. He's part of the Fire Advisory Board. And we have Chief Jeff Lure from the Loretto Fire Department. We'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. And then we also have Elisa Benson, who was recently elected to Orono City Council. So thank you for all those that came. As far as our Long Lake City Council here, I want to introduce our group. Councilmember John Dybeck, Councilmember Mike Feldman, Councilmember Deirdre Qualley, and Councilmember Gina Joyce. And we have Scott Wesky there, our city administrator. And of course, we have Fire Chief James Van Isle over here, he's the technical guy this evening. And Jeanette Moeller as well, our city clerk, is also assisting. So a lot of thanks to our staff for helping get this set up. This is also unique in that we sent a letter to all Long Lake residents to notify you, Long Lake residents specifically, of this event, which is Jeanette took a big part in doing that. And I also neglected to identify with a few former mayors of Long Lake in front of us here, so thank you to all of you as well. And Mike is pointing to, who are you pointing to? Oh, former Mayor Tim Haltman is here as well. Okay, excellent. I did not see Tim, so thank you. So thank you for all for joining us this evening. So let me get into the format a little bit here tonight. All right, so here's kind of the layout for this evening, folks. We're going to start off giving you a little overview of the fire department, kind of talking about some of the steps we and other communities around us have been involved in planning for the future of fire service in our communities. We're going to give a recap of the current situation, sort of what's at stake here today or in recent times when it comes to Long Lake Fire Department and the fire service in our communities. And then we're going to talk about some options on the table for consideration. What are some possible next steps? What might the future of the Long Lake Fire Department specifically look like? So our goal here tonight is really to educate everyone in the room. Some of you are up to speed maybe on what's going on, but probably a lot of you are not. A lot of things going on in life, not necessarily a lot of time to keep up on what's going on in your local community here. So we're going to try to bring you up to speed on that as best as we can. And then after we present, which will probably be a half hour or so, we want to hear from you. We want to hear. We have a microphone set up. We'd like to have you come up. If you want to come up, speak your mind. It's kind of like similar to the format of a city council meeting, in which in this case, we're going to allow 3 minutes per speaker. A lot of you here tonight want to give as many folks as possible time to speak. We'll have a clock running when the time comes, just so we can keep track of time. And we'll also give you some information that if you don't want to speak tonight, you can send an email to our city administrator and he'll pass that on to all of us. So that's the format for this evening. Let me start just by giving an overview of the Long Lake Fire Department. So Long Lake Fire Department was formed back in 1915. I believe the city of Long Lake was incorporated in 1905. So shortly thereafter, the fire department was created. 107 years old now. Currently serving the cities of Long Lake, obviously, as well as Alamordo, Southern Medina, and Minnetonka Beach as well. Have 2 stations. So our main station is really across the street here, Station 1 on Willow Drive. And the second station is located in Southern Orno off of Shoreline Drive or County Road 15. Great picture here. I think it looks like it's a parade. My guess, taken the night that obviously refer to the top photo there as the older one from 1949. The little sign on the side of the truck says something in fact of where your friendly neighbor is or something like that. But a neat photo that somebody found, as well as a modern day photo of some of our firefighters below. All right, so we'll just look at this slide this way. I'll tell you about some of our current firefighters and the layout of that. Oops, I really messed that one up now, John. Can you pick the vision? So we have 43 total firefighters. We have the chief, Division Chief Van Isle here, as well as 43 firefighters from assistant chief on down, of varying ranks. Most of them have been serving our communities for a number of years, from 2 months to 33 years service. There's a firefighter retired a couple months ago, Kelly Shaughnessy, I believe, put about 46 years of experience, 47 years, something like that. So incredible amount of time that our firefighters have put into serving our communities. Yeah, do that. Sorry about little technical difficulties here, folks. Firefighters, so they're paid by the hour. It's going up to $13 an hour in 2023. In addition to that, they receive about $7,000 per year of service that goes towards their pension. So that's multiplied per year, and they're not eligible to receive that for 10 years. So just to get a sense of this compensation there. You know, the term we mostly hear is volunteer firefighter is really the modern day term, is paid on call firefighters. But I assure you, none of them are doing it for the money. They're really our firefighters are doing it to serve our communities and be out there in the front lines protecting us. So that's really what of course they're doing it for. Where do our firefighters live? About 21 of them live in the city of Orno. 10 of them live in the city of Long Lake. And then the other 12 are kind of spread out amongst various cities, like Spring Park, Mound, for example, some other kind of outlying communities. Some may work in the community but live outside the community. So Station 1 that I mentioned earlier, let me just talk a little bit more about that. It was relocated to where it is now due to Highway 12 construction that came through many years ago in early 2000. And so the city of Long Lake received money from MnDOT to put towards building Station 1. And City of Orno contributed money as well. Figures are up there on the screen. And out of that came a contract for the use of Station 1 that was created back in 2021. So both cities currently own 50%, or 2001, excuse me. Both cities currently own 50% of Station 1, and then Orono owns 100% of Station 2, that one I mentioned down on County Road 15 or Shoreline Drive. Here's a look at the coverage map of the Long Lake Fire Department. So the red lines you see are the fire district boundaries of our fire department, as well as you see some other surrounding fire departments on the edge of the map. The yellow boundaries are, and sorry for folks over here that maybe can't see this as well. I know you're stretching your neck, so apologize about that. The yellow boundaries are more political boundaries, so those are the municipal boundaries of the cities that are either in our fire service area or adjoining cities. So I mentioned we serve Southern Medina and Minnetonka Beach, Orono, and Long Lake. This map has really grown over the last 20 years or so. So back in 2000, an agreement was reached between Orono at the time approached Long Lake and wanted to expand the service area that was formerly covered by the Maple Plain Fire Department. So that was one expansion that took place. Really, the northwestern corner of Orono was in the Maple Plain Fire Service area up until that time. Thank you. I'll try not to break it. And then in 2017, there was another expansion, and this is allowed for in the contract. There's contract language that covers this, but in 2017, the northeastern corner of Orono was turned over to be covered by the Long Lake Fire Department. That was at request of the city of Orono. That area had formerly been covered by the city of Wayzata's Fire Department. So that area, as I mentioned, the area has grown to the point where Long Lake Fire now covers 100% of Orono, and as that has occurred, the percentage that Orono has paid towards the annual budget of the Long Lake Fire Department has increased accordingly as the size has grown. One other thing I want to point out about this map is the Maple Plain Fire Chief told me a year or two ago here that the fire service boundaries for our area, and that includes going up into Loretto Fire, Hamel Fire, Maple Plain Fire, were drawn back in like 1977, 1978, something along those lines. All the fire chiefs got together and they coordinated, they set out and they drew maps that were really based on 10-minute response time from the fire stations. So they didn't really have anything to do with political boundaries. It was more based on the geographical, or the distance from fire stations. So when you look at, for example, Maple Plain Fire Station up there in the kind of the northwestern corner of Orono, that's really closer distance to parts of Orono than the Long Lake Fire Station is. And conversely, you go over the other side of our coverage area, the Wayzata Fire Station is pretty close and really closer to eastern sides of Orono, northeastern corners of Orono. So the things have changed as I mentioned, over time. Ideally, there's two schools of thought on this, but obviously the quicker amount of time the firefighters can get to a call, the better they are able to respond and take care of the situation. So that's a little bit about the history of a really quick snapshot about the history of the Long Lake Fire Department in our coverage area. Now let's kind of talk about what we've been doing to look at the future. As a city of Long Lake, we've obviously been operating the fire department for a number of years, and we've been doing our best to make sure it's a professional department and that we're planning for the future. So over the last couple of years, it'll be 2 years this February, there's been a lot of discussions going on among surrounding cities when it comes to the future of fire service in our communities. All of our surrounding cities, except until you start getting farther east, like Minnetonka or Plymouth, are paid-on-call firefighters predominantly. And so Medina and really Long Lake kind of partnered on getting these meetings going, called the Future Fire Services Planning Committee. And it's a number of cities, fire departments are shown here. I won't go through all of them. But we were really looking at, started by the coordination of the State Fire Marshal's Office. They're the ones who led the meetings initially. We've since kind of asked them to bow out. But they've been kind of they started guiding us and gave us a lot of information to work off of about what we should be doing to plan for the future. So we talked about station locations already. There's many fire stations. We have really good ones here in Long Lake and Orono, by part thanks to MnDOT paying for our station 20 years ago, or a big chunk of it. But other fire departments in Maple Plain or Loretto or Hamel or even Wayzata, they either need to be totally remodeled or they need to be really torn down and start from the ground up. So they're expensive to do, obviously a lot of taxes go into that. So does every city need their own fire station? Can they be maybe coordinated more geographically, centrally located? Can the equipment be shared? Does every city need a ladder truck? I didn't know much about ladder trucks, so we started talking about this. I thought the ladder trucks were putting out fires, in skyscrapers in New York City. But lo and behold, ladder trucks are needed in many cases to put out large house fires, to put out fires in barns in Independence or Medina or things like that. So which cities need ladder trucks, which fire departments need ladder trucks. Sharing of personnel is a big issue, which I'm going to talk about in another slide. Other ways to partners and sharing resources and training and things like that. So we've been talking about all of those things, really meet every other month at our Long Lake Fire Station here, and having some really good discussions about that. The times are changing. There's really, volunteerism around the United States, around Minnesota is slowly declining. Not just when it comes to fire service, but when it comes to many things. People aren't stepping forward to be, paid on call firefighters as much as they used to. People are working, a couple jobs maybe, or coaching in kids' sports, whatever the case might be. So communities are having to shift to more of a full-time firefighter model. These are just two news stories just from last month on KARE 11 started to be about exactly that same topic, especially when you get to some of the larger suburbs. Plymouth is the most recent one to mostly switch to a full-time paid firefighter model as opposed to relying on paid on-call community members. Now, thankfully, knock on wood, in our community, it's been great. We've got our 40-some firefighters here in Long Lake that have stepped up and are putting themselves out there, and that's been working for us so far, but we don't know in 10 years, 20 years, what that's going to look like as generations change and younger people get up to becoming the age of firefighters. So it's really a big topic in the communities in our area. So the State Fire Marshal's Office is obviously kind of the state's expert in this area. I mentioned earlier that they're the ones who really pulled our group together, or I shouldn't say pulled them together, but they helped start off the conversation with us. And next slide here. Okay, so in general, Minnesota is really different than a lot of states are. Now, I'm not just talking about our community or our part of the community. It's really, I learned a lot about what's going on here. And so we rank 48th in the nation. In other words, there's only 2 states that spend less than we do when it comes to fire service. We should all be paying more for fire service, whether we're International Falls or whether we're Long Lake or Orno or whatever. It's something that we've kind of relied on, paid on call firefighters, or back in the days volunteer. They're literally volunteers in many communities. They didn't get paid a dime to come out and sacrifice their lives. And that model is really not sustainable. So we need to be spending more on it. And then bullet number 2 there in the slide, we rank number 2 in the nation when it comes to the use of paid on call firefighters and volunteers. So only one other state uses more than we do. The vast majority of states are slowly shifting to this full-time model of having, like police officers that are full-time, they're always on duty. Similar models when it comes to firefighters as well. So that's kind of where the future is heading. There's a State Fire Marshal Office data. They're really encouraging fire departments and cities to merge. That's not sustainable. There's to quote John Earhart there at the bottom, there are too many fire departments in the state of Minnesota. It doesn't mean there's too many facilities or buildings. There's too many fire departments. There needs to be more mergers occurring for this to be sustainable. So looking at their data that they provided, there's about 13 fire departments have merged in the last, and their data appears to go back about 20 years. I couldn't get an exact start date from them. But 13 mergers, and only one new department has been created in that same time period. It was up in the North Metro, and that does not include Orno, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. So what Long Lake is really interested in doing, what we've learned from these discussions we've been having with their neighboring communities, is we want to do exactly what occurred just to the south of us, which is the creation of the Excelsior Fire District. So 20 years ago, almost to the day, this really exact same situation was occurring down in the south of Excelsior. And so the city of Excelsior operated the city of Excelsior Fire Department, much like Long Lake does currently. And there was discussions about, buying trucks, and we need a new facility, and who's gonna pay for it, and all those sorts of things. So the elected officials eventually sat down and they worked this out, and they created what's called a joint powers agreement. So it really means that each city jointly has power or authority over a fire department. And the Excelsior Fire District was born, essentially. And over the course of the next 5 years, they created 2 new stations. They hired its first full-time fire chief, added new equipment and technology. Now they actually have what's called duty crews working on certain days of the week, I think it's mostly weekends, that are in the station, they're ready to go, they're ready to respond to calls when they get them. So we had this group from Excelsior Fire District come speak to us at one of our future fire services planning meetings a couple of months ago. And it was very educational. It was amazing how similar it is to the situation that we're in now. So this is very much along the lines of what Long Lake is interested in. And so back to if you think about that slide that was there earlier, it listed all sorts of cities and fire departments that have been having these discussions, and they all really want to come together and have a giant fire district in some shape or form in the future. Like, this isn't going to happen overnight. It could be in 10 years, it could be in 20 years, but every city there was interested in doing that, every fire department. And really, so far, the success story out of that appears to be, and I haven't heard the latest last week or two, but a lot of good progress between the Hamilton and Loretto fire departments about coming together. So if nothing else, this group that's been meeting, that could be a potential success story from that merging. And they serve a really large area, including northern Medina and parts of Independence and Corcoran and Greenfield and cities along those lines. So more to come on that, but that's would be a success story in my book. I know that Chief Lure is here, and he's looking at, potentially if they want to get their ducks in a row with this now, but maybe in the future, maybe other cities, maybe other fire departments could join with them. So that's what's been going on so far, a little bit just as far as the fire department, but I'm going to turn the presentation over here to Councilmember John Dybeck, who's going to tell a little bit more about this current day, what is occurring in discussions with other cities.
Thanks, Charlie. So many of you may know what the current arrangement is, but some of you may not. So I'll share quickly how this is currently set up. Our current contract is an agreement among 3 cities, Medina, Orono, and Long Lake, to have a partnership with equal authority and responsibility in the budgeting and strategic planning of Long Lake Fire. And that's done in the form of this Fire Advisory Board. And that is made up of 2 members, 2 elected officials from each of the 3 cities, and we meet quarterly. And our job is to arrive at consensus, developing the budget, and for operating budget and also capital improvement budgets. And this Fire Advisory Board review is really the final step before budgets go to the 3 cities for final approval. I should add that Minnetonka Beach, as Charlie said, is also serviced by Long Lake Fire, but that's a separate contract outside of this 3-way partnership. Even though Minnetonka Beach does participate in the Fire Advisory Board meetings, they have input to it, but it's ultimately those 3 cities that have the responsibility of developing these budgets and strategic planning for Long Lake Fire. So currently, Orono pays 85% of the budget. Many of you probably heard that, and that's true. And that's based on the formula that's in the contract, which is a formula that's 70% market value and 30% call volume. And so that determines what each city then pays. Long Lake does not determine what Orono has to pay into the budget, but that's from that formula. And Long Lake has offered to consider other funding formulas. There's other ones that the League of Minnesota Cities has. There's one in particular that is of interest to Orono, and that is one that is a 1/3 market value, a 1/3 call volume, and a 1/3 population. And so we could certainly change the formula. It wouldn't really change the number that much. However, if we do add Minnetonka Beach into the formula, because currently Minnetonka Beach is not part of that formula, but if you do incorporate them as a fourth city in the formula, then Orono's share would be 75%. And then if you add another city like Wayzata, as there have been some discussions about, Orono's share would go down to 49%. You probably also heard, Orono has stated they have no control. If you've seen the red sentences there, this is out of the contract. In particular, the second sentence, that capital expenditures must be approved by a minimum of 2 cities, and the combined funding shares of 2 cities must be greater than 60%. And since Orono is the only one that is greater than 60%, it really has more control over Medina and Long Lake over budgeting. So since 2002, really, they've had more control than either of the other 2 cities. So what's been going on? Well, let me first say, so the current contract runs through December 31st of 2025, so there's still 3 years remaining. In the meantime, since 2016, and we have a long list that we've shown on a previous presentation of activities, actions, drafts, subcommittees that have been formed, but this highlights the results of that. In 2017, there was a draft extension agreement that was submitted to Orono that was rejected. In 2020, a joint powers agreement, as Charlie described, was proposed, and that was rejected. And then in April of 2021, Orono notified Long Lake that they'd be terminating, that they wouldn't renew the contract after 2025. So, recently then, this summer, 2 council members, myself and Mayor Reiner, and 2 council members from Orono met for about 3 months this summer. We met on a weekly basis trying to figure out a compromise, some common ground. And we came up with what tenets did we share? And we made a list of these tenets, and we actually had some reasonable agreement. And but ultimately, Orono would have needed a 3rd council member to go along with this, and they couldn't get that support. And in particular, it was regarding this concept of a fire board, and having the fire chief report to a central fire board instead of either Long Lake or Orono. And so that negotiation then failed, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute here. But the idea of this fire board, and this is kind of what Excelsior has, is it's a central independent body that the fire chief and the firefighters report to, and it has all operational authority. So neither city has full control, but rather this board has that authority and control. And this fire board would be made up of council members from each of the 4 cities. So in this case, we'd include Minnetonka Beach as well, and we would have weighted representation. So we, as an example, the 4 of us, when we were meeting, we said, well, maybe Orono would have 3 members, Long Lake would have 2, and then Minnetonka Beach and Medina would each have 1 member. So no single city would have majority, but Orono would have the single largest representation. And Long Lake was also willing then to have Orono provide administrative support to this fire board, but ultimately that administrative support would come from within the fire department, from a dedicated admin staff member for the chief. So we felt like this was a good compromise because it gave up authority from Long Lake that we've had for the last 20 years under the current contract, and over 80 years prior to that. So what's Orono been doing in the meantime? They've been moving ahead urgently with their planning for fire department. Late last year, they approved $3 million in bonds for acquisition or construction of a fire station. And then most recently, in September, they voted to register a new fire department with the state fire marshal. And then on September 27th, and this was after our negotiations, was becoming apparent that the negotiations weren't going to work, they submitted an offer to Long Lake to purchase our half of Station 1 and also all the equipment for $1.588 million, and then offer Long Lake 10 years of service at $70,000 a year. And Mike's going to talk more about that along with the other options that we have going forward. Also, they have recently decided to purchase their own ladder truck. There's a Coon Rapids ladder truck about 12 years old that they're going to buy and refurbish. And then most recently, they approved an offer to our chief Van Isle to be the fire chief for Orono to start at the end of this year. And then the last slide that I had, and this is just a little geography. If Long Lake were to continue to operate out of Station 1 and Orono were to build out their public works for their own fire station, we would really have two fire stations within 2/3 of a mile of each other, which might seem redundant, but that's a reality that is a possibility with the scenarios going forward. So we'll turn it over to Mike.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna talk some about different models, just forward-looking what the future of fire services might look like for Long Lake. And so there's a lot of scenarios that we can examine. And for this, tonight I thought it would be most useful and educational to just get feedback from people on three primary models. The first is the current status quo. We have a contract for fire services that still extends in excess of 3 years. And we understand those numbers well. It's about, and from a Long Lake perspective, it's about $65,000 a year with that scenario. The second model that's up here is what we're calling the Orono Fire Department. As John mentioned, there's been an offer from the city of Orono to purchase the Long Lake Fire Department and get 10 years of service as a contract for $70,000 a year. So essentially hand over the keys and then become a contract city. And one of the benefits of this approach is that the firefighters get to stay together in that approach. But with this plan, we're uncertain what would happen on year 11. If we handed over all our assets, we would be in a position that we wouldn't have any assets to start firing in. So there's a high probability if we went down that path, we would likely be a contract city into perpetuity. And then the third model that I built is what would happen if we were to partner with some other neighboring cities in the area. And so model number 3 is actually very much like model number 1, our current scenario. And that is just that Orono may not be interested in being involved. Are there other cities that may be interested? For the sake of projecting and building models, it's all hypothetical projections, and we have no agreements with other cities, but I built something based on budgets of neighboring fire departments that I think can be a realistic approach. And in this model, I put Wayzata in the southern part of Medina with Long Lake in a small model for a partnership. And in this approach, the downside to the firefighters is that if Orono does build their own fire department, and then there's a Long Lake Fire Department, that puts them in a tough spot in potentially needing to choose between which department they serve. And if we look at the cost of this approach, as I build these models, I want to be pretty realistic, and I ask, hey, what's an aggressive CIP for this, and what might this budget look like? Operationally, going with that model, where currently in this model, we would probably be about 60 to 70% bigger as a fraction of the partnership than we are now. And as you get more and more cities involved, the efficiencies increase and costs tend to go down. So in this partnership, we're a little bit bigger than we are right now with Orono and Medina and Minnetonka Beach. And the operational cost is about $105,000 a year. And the CIP that we put in here, which again, I asked for one that's pretty aggressive, that would be a sustainable rate that we could run that department in a solid fashion, would bring that total cost up to per year to $160,000. And as I go through that, one thing I recognize is that when you hear, hey, something's gonna cost $65,000 at the city, that's kind of an abstract thing. Where does that hit you and me as we're paying our taxes? So I wanted to go through a scenario of how this would actually impact kind of a middle of the road Long Lake resident. The first thing you have to understand is where property taxes go. So what we did is we pulled from, I think it was came in here 2022, we found a house in the middle of Long Lake that was about $410,000. That's slightly above the median price of a Long Lake home. So it's fairly representative. And this is the percentages of where that property tax money is going. So I believe it's 35% goes to an Orono school. So every dollar, 35 cents goes to Orono schools, 38 cents goes to the county, and 27 cents goes to the city of Long Lake. So that gray section down there is what we're tasked with managing. So digging into that section a little bit more, we can see that there is, in the public safety components of that, the police is about 7 cents of every dollar, and the fire budget is between 1 and 1.5 cents of every dollar that we spend in property taxes goes to the fire budget. So taking all of those numbers and then trying to take a snapshot, looking forward 1 year, what's a snapshot of what these costs might look like? We took that $410,000 house, and then we took a few other properties. You can see each block is a different house value. And then there's scenario 1, Long Lake Fire Department, that's the current scenario. And if we're looking at that $410,000 home, roughly speaking, they're putting $74 of their property tax, which their property taxes is around $5,100 there, in that second to last column. About $74 is going into fire. If we were to contract with Orono, roughly speaking, that becomes about $81. So a similar cost. And then if we were to do that wider area partnership with that more aggressive CIP, that dollar amount for that taxpayer would be about $185 a year. So as I look at my property taxes, I look at two things. I want to say how marginally, given this decision that has been made, how many extra dollars are coming out of my pocket. So for example, looking from scenario 1 to scenario 3 for that particular homeowner, it's $111. And in their total property tax bill, it goes from that $5,100 and change to $5,200 and change. So it's about a 2% increase in property tax. If that makes sense. So the goal of this is to try to bring some of those scenarios to light. There are pros and cons to each of these scenarios and give some idea about some relative costs of those. And I think, yep, this is deer.
So I don't know if I can move that down. So following up with what Mike said, kind of looking at and considering all options, Mike went over the cost considerations for considering all options, and I'm going to go over a couple other considerations. One of them is oversight. As John mentioned, right now we have oversight with our current contract. Our current contract that ends December 31st, 2025 is with both Medina and Orono. So we have an obligation to continue that contract because Medina is a party to the contract. Under that contract, Long Lake has administrative role for administering the contract. It also has representation on a fire advisory board that makes recommendations and regarding the budget and capital improvements. And as a contract city, Long Lake has input in improving the budgets and the capital improvements. So I think it was mentioned that Orono has, there's a proposal or scenario that we contract with Orono as a contract city. Under that scenario for oversight, we would have input in terms of an advisory role, but Orono alone would control the budget and operation and management of the fire district. And that's really a step back from the oversight that we have now. And oversight is important for assuring a level of service and safety for Long Lake. And if we only have an advisory role, we would need to make sure going forward that we had strong contract terms so that we could manage that, because we would, our input would be limited. For example, if Orono during the 10-year contract wanted to move the station further away from Long Lake, we should have provisions in the contract that restrict its movement and also address and require a certain level of service. And I think John went over the fire district and the joint powers agreement, as did Charlie. And under that agreement, or that model of service, there would be a fire board, likely managing the fire station or district. And Long Lake would have representation on that fire board and thus would have input into budgets, expenditures, capital improvement, and operations. So all of these are considerations going forward in what's a best option for Long Lake. And the next, I'm not so good with, I've done this before, I got it. But it didn't move here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next consideration is, are we looking for a short-term solution? Are we looking for something long-term? And I know Charlie long-term talked about the fire district model and consolidation and partnering with communities. If we were to go with a contract for services through Orno, the proposal is for a 10-year term, so that would be a short-term solution. And at the present time, the proposal is very affordable for a cost, but it only lasts 10 years, and 10 years is a very short time and will go by very quickly. After the 10-year period, we would find ourselves in the same situation that we are today, and possibly in a situation where we have less negotiating power. As we said, part of the scenario or option for Orno is that we would transfer all of our assets that we own to Orno. So right now, as mentioned earlier, Long Lake has a half ownership in Station 1, located across the street. Long Lake, under the terms of the contract, have the right of first refusal to purchase the rolling stock or equipment. And so we are in a good position right now, but what if we were to give all of this away to Orno and transfer all the rights to Orno, we may be in a less favorable position 10 years from now to renegotiate or partner with other cities. Ideally, the trend now is to have a fire district or partner with other cities. And if we were to go down that road, we want to make sure that we had a fire station locally so that we could make sure that we had local fire service. Ideally, and if we gave away so if the cost now and the cost of replacing the fire station in the future is hugely expensive. So if we were to join a fire district down the road and started with nothing, it might be prohibitively expensive because the cost to rebuild from scratch is fairly expensive. Cost 10 years from now might be $4 to $10 million. We'd have to find a land and building cost, or and also we would have to plan for the cost of new equipment. So it would be prohibitively expensive, and that might restrict our options in the future. And as mentioned, there's 3 years left on the contract, and so right now, Long Lake is exploring all options, in options of partnering with other cities, and I think it's important, since this is such an important decision, we need to do our due diligence, because the decisions we make now may impact or limit our future options and opportunities.
All right, thanks, Deirdre. So, just to summarize, I think it goes without saying that the Long Lake Fire Department is an invaluable part of this community and the communities that we serve. We are absolutely incredibly proud of our firefighters and the tremendous service they provide, not just for fire, but also for medical response. And as you can hear from what we're saying tonight, it is of the utmost importance that we approach our future with due diligence, particularly with a focus on public safety, whether that's location, response times, resources, partnerships, ideally collaboration and shared efficiencies, and cost, service, assets, maintenance. We've seen, the research shows the benefits that the nation's moving toward this trend of shared services in fire districts. And we also have strong concern that short-term solutions could potentially lead to long-term difficulties. So with that, we would like to open it up to public comment. We want to address any questions you may have, take any feedback you may have. So we have a mic set up over here. I will be your MC. I will cut you off after 3 minutes, not out of disrespect, but purely to give everyone a chance to talk and share their feedback or questions. If you could, please state your name, address, and city. We'll allow 1 term per speaker. We ask that you please be courteous and respectful. And this is being recorded, as we said, so this will be made available online. Thank you to the LMCC for recording tonight. This will be viewable online where all of our other city council meetings are, so if you'd like to refer back or share with folks who maybe couldn't attend tonight. And no decisions are being made tonight. We're taking all feedback, and we will take that into consideration as we make our decisions. Additionally, if you are unable to speak tonight or maybe not comfortable, please feel free to send us feedback via email as well. So S. Weskey or Scott Weskey at longlakemn.gov. We will be accepting feedback to the council through Tuesday, November 22nd at 5 p.m. regarding this issue. So with that, whoever wants.
Just 1 second to get the clock up.
Yep, we're gonna get a clock up. While we pull the clock up, whoever wants to come and ask a question or speak first, please feel free to come to the mic here.
Before you get that clock going, I'd like to take a moment to recognize my fellow firefighters in the back there. If you want to stand up. These are the men and women that show up day after day and protect this community, even when our future is kind of in jeopardy right now. And we're showing up day and night, any time of day, to serve the community. So, my name is Ben Beach. Live at 1065 Willowview Drive in Orono. And we are the firefighters of the Long Lake Fire Relief Association. Our organization is comprised of Long Lake firefighters, and we are separate from the municipal fire department. Our organization exists to provide pension plan oversight, to raise funds to acquire equipment that is not included in the city budget, and to provide support for the health, safety, and morale of our firefighters. We are also the men and women that continuously train and respond to calls to fulfill the following mission statement. It is the mission statement, or the mission of the Long Lake Fire Department, to minimize the loss of life and property for its fire service recipients in the cities of Long Lake, Orono, Medina, and Minnetonka Beach from fires, natural disasters, life-threatening situations, including medical emergencies, and to assist other emergency agencies. Over the past few years, we have held multiple listening sessions with elected officials from both Long Lake and Orono regarding options for fire service once the current contract expires. Based on those meetings and internal discussions, we are reading this statement today to convey our ideal vision for future fire service, with the hope and intention that it can and will influence decisions made by the two cities. Since day one of this process, our #1 priority has been to keep this group of firefighters together, regardless of ownership. It is our opinion that disrupting or deconstructing the Long Lake Fire Department adds no benefit to the public, especially in the short term. We firmly believe that it would take many years for each city to establish a new fire department and develop it into the type of organization that exists today. To put it bluntly, if our group of firefighters is split up, our communities will not receive the same excellent fire service that they have enjoyed for many, many years. Therefore, in light of recent developments between the cities, we believe that in order to keep our organization intact so that we can continue to provide excellent service, the Long Lake Fire Department needs to become a part of the city of Orono. We also believe that the city of Long Lake should receive its fire services from the city of Orono under a long-term, mutually beneficial contract. We believe that this is the best solution for the city and, most importantly, the citizens we serve. From a pure public safety perspective, we believe that this is the best solution for the following reasons. Leadership. Our leadership is tenured, competent, and professional. Long Lake Fire would not be what it is today without their vision and guidance. Team cohesiveness. Our team is dedicated and motivated. Quite frankly, we're the best we've ever been, despite all the distraction caused by the finger pointing, inaction, and failed negotiations during this process. Training and development. Our training rigor and curriculum is best in class, resulting in extraordinary preparedness. I invite each one of you to come watch us in action every Monday night as we train to sharpen our skills. And experience. We have over 300 years of combined experience and proven ability amongst our group. Splitting us up would be a shame. So in conclusion, as Long Lake makes their decisions and plans for fire service in the near future, we ask that the decision makers keep our position in mind. We ask this not for ourselves, but for the citizens we serve and what they have come to expect from our fire department, regardless of contracts, controlling interests, or the name on the door. Thank you.
And I just want to add, I'm Rick Wolfsbrock at 191 Orchard Circle, Long Lake. So this isn't just an Orono firefighter, this is a combined between both Long Lake and Orono firefighters.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have questions or comments? Feel free to come up to the mic. Yep, thank you. Please remember to state your name, address, and city.
Tamas McMillan, formerly 80 Smith Avenue, Orono, currently 1274 Long Lake, and actually was visiting Long Lake a couple decades ago when the Orono Fire Department had to show up. They were excellent, and the timing, quickness of their response prevented a fireball effect going from the next building into our building. So they saved our lives. I have a couple of clarification questions. You mentioned in doing the numbers that the contract proposed by Orono would be shifting it to population, is that correct? In the calculation for expenses?
That would be an option to have a formula, but the current population is not part of the formula.
Okay, but the new contract and the 10 years thing includes it.
It's a contract, that's just contract city, yeah.
Okay, so as a contract
There would
city,
be no formula.
The formula was in reference to Long Lake's contract, and if we were to continue with the Long Lake Department, options for different formulas.
okay.
But if we were to become a contract city with Orono, it would just purely be a set amount that was told to us by Orono.
No, but as part of the contract, the cost of that contract would be based, if I heard correctly, and this is why I want clarification, was going to be on population.
The contract is a fixed amount.
Okay.
So here's the contract, they just.
Yeah, but I didn't know how they got to that contract amount. I thought it was part of it. Okay. Secondly, do they know where the, my understanding, again, is that they already know where Orono wants to put a second station, where they want to move it to and build a new one? Do we know where that is? Or is that?
Yeah, we can't speak for Orono. We heard their current public works facility, but perhaps one of them would like to share at some point during their public comment.
And then thirdly, is there any way to guarantee that we stay within the 10-minute response? Whatever happens in any of the three scenarios?
We don't know as far as the Orono scenario goes, that is one of our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak?
Brian Miller, 295 Lakeview Avenue in Long Lake, 61-year resident of the Lake Minnetonka area. Deep Haven, Wayzata, Orono, and now Long Lake for the past 24 years. I just want to thank this mayor and council for putting this together and bringing the community the green numbers topic. It's a very big topic. I think you all know how I feel about the fire department. The Rettingers are here. Their grandfather was the founding chief of the fire department. I'm a person of, I respect history. I appreciate it. I also want to say, as far as firefighters go, this makes me a little sad to talk about, but my life was saved by a firefighter in 1991. And I thank God that there's people who come to save you when you can't help yourself. And so it's not just a small, I don't believe it's just a small number of people who care about the firefighters. I think everyone in this room cares about the firefighters and supports them 100%. So I don't think the city of Long Lake is trying to break up the firefighters. And I think they will do everything they can to keep them together. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry for the distance that has to be traveled from the other side of the room to the mic. Please remember to state your name, address, and city.
My name is Dave Pearson, and I am an Orono resident, 2160 Weber Hills Road. But in my past life, I had 10 years here as on 62 Apple Glen Road. And during that time, I also was on the Planning Commission and the City Council of Long Lake. And I was involved in the putting together of this fire department contract as we have it today. My thought is that I haven't heard of any problems with the Long Lake or Orono Fire Department. It just seems that everybody seems to be very happy with the job they're doing. I just want to make one comment in that one of the other things that I did when I was on the council was there was a time when Orono tried to take over Long Lake. And I was very involved in trying to make that not happen because Long Lake is a great community. And I worry that in this 10-year deal that they're talking about, that this is just an effort to come back and take Long Lake back. And I would hate to see that. And as an Orono resident, I have to tell you, now maybe I don't hear everything or see anything, but we know very little about what's going on in this process. All I know as a resident, and I'm pretty involved in what's going on, is that we've hired a chief, and we've got a ladder truck for $347,000 plus 100 and some thousand to refurbish it. We don't know anything about the cost of this department. I agree it'll probably be a paid department, but we have heard nothing as to what it's gonna cost us as Orono residents to be involved. I understand the gentleman from the fire department that they wanna stay together, 100% behind that. So I guess I would ask the question, if it was a fire district, would the fire department be able to stay together? I hope so, but I really am nervous that this is a power play by Orono to take us back, take the fire department, and we got no other choices. My understanding is that they're gonna they had a $16 million bond for the public works and the fire department, of which $3 million of it was for a fire department. My understanding is that's now gonna go to the public works, and I could be wrong on that, and I'm sure they'll correct me. But what I think they're planning to do is redo the public works at the current, which again would put the two fire departments right together. I think we should be working together on this, and I want the fire department to stay together, and I want to see what Orono says about what my taxes are gonna do in this process. I've heard nothing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional comments, questions? Please state your name, address, and city.
My name's Blake Johnson. I live at 2056 Graham. I have the distinct pleasure of knowing a lot of the Long Lake Fire Department guys. Plowed their driveways, they've helped me, they've burned things in the yard, they've burned things in my yard, other people's yards, who cares? The thing that we need to remember about becoming a contract city, where we have no say over our facilities or over our services. Look at why Long Lake does not use Orono PD. They're too expensive, right? So we go to Wayzata. So what's to say 10 years down the road, they don't, sorry for the they, I don't mean to be a jerk like that. What's to say that they are not affordable 10 years down the road, right? And the next thing you know, we're a permanent contract city with no options of building our own fire department up again. And then we're just gonna end up like Navarre, a city of Orono. We're gonna end up like Mountain PD, just gone. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Kelly Shaughnessy. Hopefully I don't break up here too much, but I'm a member of the fire department, or I was up until June this year. My family's represented this department since I was 1 year old. Had a dial phone that we used to call. That's how the fire calls went out when I was a kid. And a monitor, and a pager. And so I feel pretty ingrained and pretty emotional about where we come and why. And I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated in that Orono didn't, I'm an Orono resident now. Sorry, I didn't give my address. I'm 2150 Collin Drive in Orono. I spent my first 25 years living in Long Lake. So, but I'm frustrated in the fact that Orono, when they decided to make this move, didn't hold a meeting like this for us citizens. That's very frustrating.
Exactly.
I'm also frustrated in the fact that they, I understand they bought the new truck, the price probably sounds right and all this kind of stuff, but it really brings up the question to me, if we needed a public works in Orono, how come for the next 3 years we're taking up a fourth of that building to park this daggone truck? It's frustrating. I hope that things can get resolved. I've always looked at the community, and I've told people this time and time again, I've always looked at this community as one. I looked at it as the school district, which I was involved in for many, many years also. And that's the community. It's not Long Lake, it's not Orono. And what's good for one is good for all. What's good for Orono should be good for Long Lake and vice versa. And if the councils can't keep that at the uppermost, is that, negotiations are always, if you don't feel you kind of got a little bit of the short end of the stick, it probably wasn't a good negotiation in the first place. But it's my hope that, especially for all my fellow firefighters and the history that goes back, which is really dear to me, that somehow this comes out and works well for both the Long Lake and the Orono residents, that we can look at ourselves as a community again. So thank you for listening to me.
Last time I saw Kelly Shaughnessy was in the back of an ambulance at my house. I was gonna get a shot because my heart was beating 220 beats per minute. And I said, Kelly, you gotta come in here and hold my hand. And I'm gonna swear, and I'm gonna say bad words. And he came in and almost broke his hand. My name is Gretchen Cashmore. I live at 303 Lakeview Avenue. I have been a 50-some year resident of Long Lake. My father was one of the fire department chiefs, Lawrence Freund. I've grown up at the fire department with all these people since I was, again, tiny. But the fire department, to me, is a community. I hate to see them leave. I want them to be the Long Lake Fire Department. They're always there. They are your friends. They're there in a heartbeat when you need them. I don't have to wait 20 minutes for someone to come and help. I remember being young and having my father fire siren would go off, the dog would leave, go to the fire station, and then my dad would follow him. But we were always up waiting for him to come home. And these guys put their lives every day, every time they answer that call, they don't even question it. They go out and they take care of us. And I want this community to still have our Long Lake Fire Department because they're close to my heart. They always will be. My niece is a firefighter in Victoria. Her husband is a Hopkins firefighter. So it's kind of my blood. So I don't want Orono to gobble up Long Lake because we are amazing people here. We have the greatest fire department. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Hi, Jay Nygaard, many of you know me. Elm Street first, I don't remember the address. Then 699 Minnetonka Highland Lane, 2140 Grand Avenue, 87 Inglewood Street, and now 1386 West Point Road. Those are my addresses in my life, other than when I served my country in the Navy and I got my degree at the University of Minnesota. This is my home, this is my community, and I am sad. I'm extremely saddened by what's going on, the divisiveness, the divisiveness going on in our community being brought on by certain actors. We don't need to have this. There's enough trauma going on in this world that we need to mess with something that already works. The Long Lake Fire Department has worked for well over 100 years. It has served this community well. I mean, it has been there for all of us, and it has, as we've heard, saved people tonight. But now what do we have? Now we have a darkness. We have a darkness coming over our community, and it started in Orono. This darkness is raising taxes. This fire department stuff is going to cost everybody more money. And to think, if you're going to have two fire departments right next to each other, that's idiotic in this day and age. But this darkness is spreading. This darkness is now spreading to the fire department. And I don't mean to the firefighters themselves, but it's putting a divisive thing within the fire department, is creating a fear that was in Orono, with the Orono staff and others, where they actually unionized to protect themselves. Well, that same fear is now in the Long Lake Fire Department. Are we going to have a job? Are we going to stay together? Are we? Why are we talking, are we? We should be talking about us. We shouldn't be dumping on our sister or brother community next door. I live in Orono now, but I feel so much more a Long Lake resident than I ever have with what's going on these days. I don't understand, but I do. Because I have seen the darkness, I've seen where it's coming from. And I want other people to do what I have done for the last 10, 12 years. Stand up to this darkness. Stand up for what is right. Stand up for the people around you. Stand up for their rights. And to do that, we need to maintain the status quo. I understand the firefighters want to maintain and be together, and they absolutely should. But they should not be put in a position where they have to choose. And that's what recently happened to the fire chief of Long Lake, and that's what's going to happen to the rest of them, and that is bullshit. Everybody got it? Sign it.
My name is Pete Yemchin, live at 2515 Modelink Road. It's Medina for about 25 years now. I echo some of the sentiments the prior gentleman said, meaning there's some questions as to the long-term motivation for Orono for what they're doing. I'm the recipient at my home of an emergency medical call from your crew. I have a good friend that's been part of your crew for 10 years, nearly 10 years. I approach everything that I'm hearing from the perspective of a medical distribution business owner. And the two things that really come to mind that I would encourage you all as the leading counsel for Long Lake, two things that come to mind. Number one is the fiscal impact in the greater community of redundancy of facilities. And so, as I've worked in Minnesota, Northwest Wisconsin, it's really important that hospitals don't replicate expensive infrastructure when it's not required in the community. And that said, from my understanding, Station Number 1 is a relatively new facility. It serves the community well, as far as I know. These gentlemen, I don't know if there's women on the crew, have done a great job of serving us. Thank you all, I appreciate it. And to replicate a facility of that scope, invariably that will deplete really what's going on with Station 1. There's been a significant investment, albeit on the part of the Highway Department maybe. Point is, when you all make this decision on behalf of the residents of the fire district, let's be fiscally responsible, if that makes sense. The second issue is the staffing, and that's always critical for anyone that, especially in the last 3 years, we've seen the challenges of recruiting and hiring staff across all industries, right? And when you have combined experience of 300 years, whatever the decision ends up being, I would encourage you guys to preserve in a very robust fashion what these gentlemen and women have put together, their experience, and that ultimately they are deeply involved in the decision that is made, and that ultimately they have the opportunity and the discretion to maintain that work environment and their employment status. There's a cost to...
Sorry, sir, but we're at time.
There's a cost to hiring and recruiting, a hard dollar cost, but the bigger cost is really the safety of replacing, if we go to the employment, the full-time employment model that was mentioned, that you're gonna have people that don't have the experience level, and then it becomes a potential cost of life and death as staff go out that don't have the experience level that you folks do. Thank you. Sorry for going over.
Thank you very much.
Cody Farley, 328 DuPont Street, I'm here in Long Lake. Everything you guys have said here tonight is very true. The feelings, the sentiment, the history, the love of this department, they're all real things that are part of this decision. What Firefighter Beach read tonight is also a huge part of this decision. And I want to change your perspective a little bit. And right now, we're looking at what are perceived to be many options for what can we do, how can we move forward in this situation. We have this mutually beneficial agreement that we could have between multiple cities, joint powers agreement, as you've mentioned. That's not currently a viable option right now. That requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of cooperation, things that are kind of hard to come by in the current climate between these cities. So the three options in particular that were up on the screen, we had, the first one was continuing with the current contract. That contract does in fact go for 3 more years, but Orono has less than zero interest in continuing it. So that's not really an option. Recreating a contract with Orono, there might be something there, but it would not be what it is currently today. You had the option of recreating the structure with different cities. That could be a thing. However, like you mentioned, you will take this fire entity and split it into 2, and then try to make that half, which it won't be half by any means, it'll be less than half that Long Lake will maintain. You want to still create a fire department there to serve the city of Long Lake and also benefit Wayzata perhaps, but really we would be supported by the city and fire department of Wayzata, which I'm not so sure that's something they want to engage in or can even support at this point. So really looking forward, what needs to happen, This fire entity, which is Long Lake Fire now, is what needs to be maintained. And it's not just the firefighters of that fire department, it's the entity itself and the service that it provides to the communities. So the goal needs to be, how do we maintain that? And Long Lake on its own can't do that. So if Orono, which is the big power play, and it is a power play, whoever mentioned it's just a power play, but Orono, yes, by all means it is. But they have the ability to do this, and they are doing it, and they're showing they can do it by buying this ladder truck, by hiring James, our fire chief. They are creating a fire department. We're not gonna stop that. And so we need to shift our thinking to how do we become part of maintaining this entity, and it needs to include Orono, right? Because right now, Long Lake, is 10% of the budget, 10% of the operating budget. But so for our money, we're receiving services of an entity that's 10 times larger than what we need, right? And that's a great thing. So if we strip Orono out, we're down a lot of resources and a lot of ability, and we can't provide the same level of service to the city of Long Lake without them. So we need to change our thought process about this, and it needs to be about maintaining what we have and not having it be divided and not having it become a shell of itself, which would not be representative of Long Lake Fire's history either. So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, we have one over here.
Go ahead.
Please ever state your name, address, and city.
My name is Kelly Grady. I live at 271 Green Hill in Long Lake. My husband is a Long Lake firefighter. And I do want to just start off by saying I do not like how we got here. This is truly a David and Goliath situation, and I do not appreciate being browbeaten by a larger city because of budgets. But nevertheless, this is the situation that we are in. I want to piggyback off what Cody was saying. None of the options that are being presented to us tonight are viable within the foreseeable future. I have a son in the 8th grade. By the time he's graduated, a JPA or a fire district, none of those things can be negotiated and figured out before Orono builds and puts into place their own fire service. We are in a real situation in Long Lake where but there's not going to be, I hear a lot about redundancy, there's not going to be redundancy. Orono is going to create their fire department, and they're going to take the majority of the existing fire department with them. We're gonna have maybe 10 existing Long Lake firefighters that live in Long Lake, but they're going to be offered pensions and their service to go over to Orono Fire. And they are the only guaranteed entity that will allow them to continue to stay together and maintain their pensions. If they go, whatever small fire department Long Lake Fire is able to hobble together is not sustainable. And they talk a lot about the uncertainty, about the 10 years and the stuff like that. We are 3 years away from uncertainty. Go back to Orono, negotiate more time, and talk to them about negotiating more time. I know you're not doing that because I've talked to all of you. You need to actually work with them, and Orono needs to work back too. This is not a sustainable solution. The thing is about losing oversight. I believe that, like I said, this is a David and Goliath situation. Does anybody over here really believe that Orono is going to tank fire service? That they're going to make fire service worse for our citizens? No, but all of these options up here are going to make the fire service worse for the citizens of Long Lake if we cannot get this figured out, because we don't know, as Cody pointed out, that Wayzata is willing to take us, and even if they do, it will increase response times for the citizens of Long Lake. We are in an uncertain situation, and the only certain situation that we have in any kind of foreseeable future is moving towards an agreement with Orono and figuring it out. You talk about the public works building and this other building. I'm telling you right now, the Long Lake firefighters do not care if you move their fire department 2 blocks away from where it is now. It does not matter. It's not going to be a problem. Please listen to the fire department. They are in this every single day. They are serving all of you, and they care deeply. Do not let their service go unnoticed by not moving forward with a contract that can be negotiated if these two cities would just come together. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jim Elder, 195 South Brown Road, Orno. I'm a retired firefighter, as you can probably imagine. And 3 years ago, I came to a training evening after I'd retired, and I heard Mayor Miner give a presentation. Now, that was 3 years ago. And the negotiation going back and forth between Long Lake and Orono has essentially been a lost cause. And when I discovered that James had just taken the position of fire chief of Orono's fire department, I figured that the ship had sailed. I didn't think it was a fair fight, I still don't, but the ship is just about to sail. But I do have an idea. If the Orono City Council had the bravery, the candor of having such a meeting with its residents, of which I'm one, I think they get an earful. Maybe not, maybe I'm naive, but I challenge Orono, if there's a representative here this evening, to stand up and have this done before us. See what we think of it.
They're chicken.
No, wait a minute.
They're chicken.
This is an adversarial relationship between two willing participants.
It shouldn't be adversarial.
Well, it's going to result in a solution one way or another. Right now, I don't like the way it's headed. I'm hoping, naive as it may sound, that if the Orono City Council is willing to listen to its citizens and how they're going to feel about a probable increase in taxes, a possible deterioration of their services, they should have a say in this. If the ship has already sailed, it's sailed, and it's too bad. I as an individual, don't care what the name on the fire truck says. I just want to keep the service as strong as it is. I want this team to stay together, and I would like to have the level of camaraderie restored. But right now, it doesn't seem like a fair fight, and the ship is about to sail. I'm just wishing that Orono would see if we couldn't change your negotiating positions and your flexibility. Thank you.
Do you have any additional questions, comments, feedback?
Do I have to walk all the way over there?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right, I'm gonna start here and I get extra time. My name is Tom McCower, and
Yeah, you can go.
Use the microphone right there.
Yeah, right here.
my name is Tom McCower, 1070 Old Long Lake Road, and I am truly a newcomer. I just moved here a year ago. From the West Coast, not California. Everybody tonight is right, and everybody tonight is wrong, okay? I'm a retired firefighter, paramedic, just shy of 30 years. I've been on school shootings, I've been on mall shootings, I've delivered 7 babies. I worked at a fire department that was a combined group of cities, counties, districts, areas. Our budget is 3 times that of Minneapolis and St. Paul combined. We did exactly what you guys are trying to do when we started 30 years ago. Where you're at is 30 years behind the times. Okay? I say that because even though I'm new here, I have 2 daughters. One's driving around right now. One has bad allergies, and my house can burn down too. So the reason I got involved with this is I started looking around to see what kind of service we have. I was shocked. I was shocked at the level of service. And what I was really shocked at was this argument that's going on. This is immature. This is stupid. And I guarantee you, the firefighters here, who I am so proud of, I bet they don't care what they're called. Orono, Long Lake, Up North Fire Department. They're still gonna show up. Fires, strokes, heart attacks, childbirths don't recognize cities, boundaries, jurisdictions at all. And guess what? The one thing that stood out in this, 48 in the entire country on how we fund the fire departments. If you guys want better, you're gonna pay for it. Taxes are gonna go up, whether it's Orono, Long Lake, whoever's running. The way in the future, the state fire marshal has said it, everybody has said it, is a combined fire district. How do you get there? The
comment was made, it's impossible, we're not gonna see it. The average time to bring in a city on where we were at was 1.5 years. Contracts are in place, the technology's in place, the legal matters are in place, everything's there. We just need to stop squabbling with egos. And remember, when the bell goes off, you guys don't care where that is, right? Am I right? Right. When you have somebody here would say, right, very emotional, good job, whatever that was, do you think they care what their taxes were when they had to call 911? No. I don't know how much time I have. Can I get the bell?
You have 18 seconds.
Yeah, right. My chief had, one time gave us, we had a couple complaints, and our chief brought up a point to us. And he said, well, how many of you are doing a project right now? How do you find a contractor or a painter or something? You want for bids, right? You ask a neighbor, you go on Angie's List, you read reviews, I'm gonna cheat. So you reach out, you find the best deal. What's the cheapest, what's the best, who does the best quality, who has the best thing? When you call 911, do you get to bid or look around or ask for, are they gonna be good? No, you get what shows up. And so our chief looked at all of us as officers and he said, how dare you be less than the very, very best you can be? How dare you when you show up with a stroke or a heart attack or to do CPR? How dare you be less than the best? Right? We don't get to bid as citizens. We don't get to go on Angie's List and say, what fire department would be good? No, we get what shows up in our report. Thank God there's people who are willing to do it, to volunteer and risk themselves, their lives, and their families. We need to support them any way, shape, or form. In my point of view, a fire district is doable, it's doable rapidly, it's doable affordably, and it gets it off of these guys' plates, and it gets it off Orno's plates, it gets it off all the cities into an incorporated fire district with an oversight board.
We're currently accepting applications.
Please remember to state your name, address, and city.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Arlo Vandevecke, 50 Valley Road. I've lived there as Long Lake. I've lived there since 1979. And I had the privilege of being city attorney here for 15 years, back when they had beer in the fire. And I could tell you some stories, but I won't. The only thing, this is a very difficult situation, very tough. And I didn't know that much about it until I got here tonight. And I think that the city of Long Lake is in tremendous hands. These people put together a professional, very informative presentation for us so that as citizens we can understand what the problem is and what the issues are. And it's only through that, having an understanding, that you can really work on getting a solution. So I think the work is just getting started here. Both sides have to be willing to work towards a solution, or it just ends up being a fiasco for everybody. So I just want to get up and say thank you to these people for the work you've been doing on this, and thank you for this wonderful meeting. And let's all work together to try and get this done. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Bash. I'm a 31-year resident of 1680 Bowling Lane, Long Lake. I'm a 31-year resident of Long Lake. I'm also a former mayor. I will take credit for the $2.4 million from MnDOT, but more importantly, I think Mayor Schaefer should take credit for this agreement that we have that has served us so well. And one of the important things about that agreement was that it had this period, this cooling off period, that was designed that if somebody, one of the cities involved, started getting some bad ideas, that hopefully there would be times for cooler heads to prevail. And I really want to compliment the City Council of Long Lake for trying to do that.
I think your presentation tonight was incredible. I think the foresight that you have is talk about what the future is. You've made it very clear what the future is. It's not smaller fire departments, it's bigger fire departments, and that's the future that we have to get at. My suggestion for you is what you have on the table now is a unilateral offer from Orno. I think you need to negotiate. Don't like 10 years, then make it 20. You don't like 70,000, year 11, put that in the contract. You can create service standards, say that they can't move the fire station. You can, all kinds of performance things. It's a contract. And just think about, my suggestion to you is think about what you want. What would you want, regardless of who owns it and who controls it, what would you want, and put that into a potential contract. Then, because I think you have an enormous negotiating opportunity, quite honestly, based on what we've heard tonight, to sort of embarrass the city of Orono to say, really? You're not willing to agree to a contract that Long Lake says that they want the same service standards for the next 20 years that they've had for the last 20 years? Are you really afraid to put that into a contract? I think you have a tremendous amount of leverage from the public perception standard to be able to get some different things to look at. So I would encourage you to do that. It still might not be acceptable, and that's, I trust that you will make a good decision, but I would encourage you that don't just take that as a unilateral offer. I think there's, what the kind of things, and one of the things you might want out of that, because it's so important, you might want to say, I want to be able to opt out at any time, a couple years notice, to join a fire district. A fire district forms 5 years ago, 5 years from now, you have the opportunity to opt out and join that. That could be something you can negotiate as part of your contract. So thank you very much for doing this. I think the future that you're looking at is the right future, and I want to support you any way I can as you move toward that future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments, questions? No? All right. Take over, Charlie?
All right, well, this is kind of what I expected. I'm not, others can certainly chime in too, but there's a lot of viewpoints here. There's not like a single viewpoint. There's the firefighters made their point. They've been making their point with us for a long time, and I think to Orno too. And great point that they want to stick together. That's what our goal remains being. It's beneficial for them to do that. I think there's some good ideas that were thrown out here tonight. This is difficult for all of us. Most of us didn't necessarily sign up for this. We all have, full-time jobs and families like everybody else. Firefighters didn't sign up for this as far as the kind of the political situation going on here. They sign up to serve our communities and save lives, and it's good to appreciate the couple folks here that stood up to say they've had their lives saved by firefighters. So this is a really challenging situation for both groups, for some of you as community members as well. We just want to ensure that folks were made aware of what's going on. It was good to hear from a few of you that didn't really know what was going on or didn't know as much about it. So we presented it. I think our goal here tonight was try to present it as unbiasedly as possible, just kind of lay the facts on the table. I hope you're fairly good at that. There's a lot of emotions involved in this. There's a lot of emotions involved with the Orno Council, with our council. We've been neighbors for forever, obviously. We've gone back and forth sharing services. We used to have Orno Police, and now it's Wayzata Police, and who knows, what the future holds. Police departments are a whole other entity. I just retired in July after 27 years in policing. That's a whole other field that has challenges when it comes to staffing. There's probably going to need to be consolidation in the future when it comes to police departments too. So we're kind of looking at the future here and trying not to make necessarily short-term decisions versus long-term decisions. So we'll have our work cut out for us here. Undoubtedly, whatever decision we make regarding Orno's offer or renegotiating Orno's offer or whichever direction we go, it's probably going to upset some people, and that's just the nature of the beast with what we do as elected officials. We make tough decisions. So But this isn't the end of the conversation. There were some really good comments here about, Orno is part of this as well. I'm hoping, there's a couple of Orno officials here tonight. Hopefully I appreciate them coming and listening to this as well. And maybe there's an opportunity there to, have further discussions about this, because I believe their intent also is to keep the firefighters together. And so I think we're hopeful for that. But Long Lake City Council meets, every other Tuesday, or I should say the first and third Tuesday of the month, our city clerk would tell us. So feel free to come back anytime and speak to us. We have an open correspondence section at the beginning of the meeting, usually 5 minutes in length. Come and tell us what's on your mind, whether you're a Long Lake resident or Orno resident or whatever. Orno has a similar situation, open correspondence in their meetings, towards the end of their meetings. So if you're Orno residents or Long Lake residents, you have the right as a citizen to speak to them as well. Both cities, our meetings are televised. Thanks again to the LMCC for being here today. Video recording this meeting will be probably online next day or two. But in the case of Long Lake City Council, all of our meetings are video recorded by the LMCC and available on YouTube and their website a day or two after our meeting usually. And Orno has a similar situation where they video record their meetings and they are available the next day or two. So even if you're not able to make your city's council meetings, feel free to go to that, or please watch them and just stay tuned to what's going on in both cities. We talk about this topic almost every meeting for the last 6 months or so, and we'll undoubtedly talk about it for the next several months as well. So, and I would assume that Orno will continue to be discussing it as well in the future. So please stay tuned that or stay informed about this. That's sort of your duty, our duty as citizens to stay informed. A lot of times we're watching national news, watching about what's going on in the border or in New York or whatever. But there's really a big issue going on here in our own backyard. So I applaud all of you and appreciate all of you for coming here tonight to be part of this and to be educated and give us your feedback. So those are some closing thoughts I had. Anybody else have any closing thoughts? Great. So appreciate it. Certainly we'll be around if anyone wants to come up and talk afterwards with us. And again, thank you to Calvin Presbyterian Church for hosting this and the staff. And thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, yes. Oh, okay. Just want to make sure. All right.
Hi.
Hi. Hey.
Did you remember to give me the link to this?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll have it ready on Monday. I'll send it to you.
Yeah. If you don't remember, I'll send you the.
I won't forget.
Was this your seat back here?
I had some baby food back here. I thought it was a good thing to get out of control, right? Exactly.
Counted on your little table.
You got it, exactly. Couldn't get in my way. I did, thanks. Oh, like card, gotcha. Where are the other cards, you know? Do you have the other cards?
Cards?
Cards.
Yeah, I gave those to.
So, okay, he's got something? Okay.
Yeah. When you came over, that.
Oh, no, I heard him, but I didn't know where they are.
Oh,
I
think he put them in his pocket.
Okay.
Yeah. This guy wanted to get a picture.
He was here?
Yeah.
Did he want to?
So we were on my phone to take a couple pictures. So he gave me his card.
It was
Yeah, I know.
Did that sound good there?
Oh.
I think so.
I don't know. Thank you guys so much.
No problem. I should have to see you by Monday.
I know. I knew that was going to be rough. That's exactly what.
Oh, you did it.
I know.
That's
Folks, fun meeting tonight, great participation. Turbine guy had his chance to speak, and we all got to see it. Oh, and here's my friend Barb. Doesn't even realize she's on camera. Well, thank you. Well, how'd I do tonight?
Fantastic. No, and I appreciate
No, because they violate open meeting law. There's only 4 communities. You don't have to hear public hearings.
They did an incredible job. It was every 3 hours. They were making stuff up. They were making
That's what I've been trying to think of. I've been trying to show people. It is there now. Now the fire department in the position. I was frustrated. I knew one of them. And I knew the whole reason that they would never say was because they wanted money in housing. I mean, the whole. This is I'm super scared. Because when you take over, people are as long as you never do that, you don't get why has them never the price goes up from day one. Price goes up for everybody from day one, you know, that's part of the discussion. It's in the eye. But I think, maybe one that he's That's always no, that is. We did my neighbors again in order to get their vote. The things he did, and not just my taxes, but us and he did that in other sections of Warren. He took a bunch of neighbors against one set of neighbors. So he would get the bunch of neighbors votes. He's got a habit of doing that separately with well, if we sat down for probably a couple of hours, with 12 hours, we would watch that shaking the head over that. You wouldn't believe it. It takes a special. Just like when I tell people I'm not a lawyer. I've been several cases. No, I have been subject to I'm the one who's been subject to everything he needs done. And he has He got the neighbor to sue the city to sue us, they could enact $1 million insurance. To go after him. That neighbor got a permit to the community after him. How often was that? That's a question. He came down in front of my house, threatened me, my wife, my kids, the job, and the mortgage. He used to be done. That's who but I can rarely see him like that. Come down to my house first. The first set would come down and try to come to my house. It's not like we'd be hanging out down here. I don't know who you are.
No, that's fantastic, but just know
No, we don't. I never seen him. Oh, no probable cause. This is right with probable cause. And can dismiss it right away. Walsh filed a Walsh made up the whole but Gabriel and I were working together, but we found that with this judge, Dave had his lawyer, everybody said Walsh is lying, and we still said there's a So that's just a little bit. I ran the council years ago now, and I kicked it. Gabriel, when you found out I was running, two people running against me, they were in the community pissed, and she was, and none of them was the case. But that's what happened back then. And I wonder about that. And what I did, I took sleep weekend, and I knocked on the door all weekend long. And I said, down the street, this is how I want it. This is what you need to do. And so I get to clean that and get behind her on the YouTube channel, and enough to get her to understand what to do there.
Like 600 houses, I can get 5 weekends, I can knock them down. But she's like, oh my God, the driveways in Oregon are huge.
And you know what I found out? Oregon got way too many fences. Because if there ain't a fence, you just go door to door. Because the fences are gonna go all the way around.
Yeah, there's
But you know, the funniest time I had was on a Sunday at the Vikings game, going on at my house. Get in here, have a beer. Having a beer, watching the Vikings game, and then have my
Yeah, that's good.
It's awesome.
I know I can always feel cool. Because you walk around, people just want to talk.
I had a friend tell me, you know, people are gonna ask you political things, you don't want to do that for this, but if you really have to say to someone, just tell them you're not for a conservative. And that's what I say, don't tax me too much and leave me alone. That's what
And everybody has their signs up for the time. We're going to take it out.
We are slowly but surely trying to migrate so Chelsea can
Oh,
shut her
geez,
down.
you betcha.
All right.
Yeah, I just said, this is this is an nonpartisan.
Yeah.
I'm a conservative, and it's a Democrat.
It is.
Because this was they just wanted to care. They want, they want.
Yeah. Everybody does. Hey, Turbine guy signing off finally. There's only 2 people watching.
Because they're gonna do a whole bunch of people are coming.
Oh, geez, this thing won't sign off till I flip it over. See how my camera's screwed up?
Okay.
The top don't work. Watch this. I gotta flip it. Baby.
I'm so happy. These guys were so good.
Yeah, it was a good show today. Baby, rotate device. There we go. Now I can shut you down. All right, guys, thanks.